Moving on to Morocco, is the next Arab uprising occurring there? The big story's Amina Taylor went to Morocco to find out.
A king who rules with an iron fist, rising levels of unemployment and growing street protests. This week, the big story is in Morocco, where we ask what's happening to the country's revolution.
Si vous voulez, pour résumer, la monarchie marocaine, en quelque sorte, est une monarchie absolue.
As the world tries to keep up with the ever-changing nature of the Arab Spring, this country too appears on the verge of momentous change. Whilst 400,000 young people join the job market each year, only 100,000 jobs are created. In short, it's no surprise that Morocco's young people have been the mainstay of the campaign for reform. Yet rather than being just another piece in the myriad of problems facing this country, many feel that the dire economic situation is demonstrative of a deeper malaise within Morocco. It's in places like this Medina in Saleh that's seen the roots of the 20th of February movement, led by the young, led by students.
I mean, we have a lot of problems, and problems deeper than Egypt and Tunisia. And the aim of our movement is to make a change for this country because we cannot wait anymore.
Well, that's good. We need to nurture the young talents.
Whilst Western powers are happy to do business and, if necessary, turn a blind eye, in Morocco, most people we spoke to had been confronted with the true nature of the state. As we moved around Morocco's major cities, it became clear that the police were on the lookout for anyone looking to follow the opposition movement. Many of those we spoke to had first-hand experience of police violence and the flexible idea of justice that exists in Morocco. We've been asked to stop filming on a number of occasions. We're right in front of the Moroccan parliament, and here sensitivities, because of what's happened, is very, very high.
In many conservative Indian families, widows are seen as a liability. Cast out of the family home, they live the rest of their lives in poverty and isolation, as is the case in Randavan in Uttar Pradesh, where Shahana Butt visited to see the plights of these women.
It is said widows have come to Vrindavan since 16th century, hoping Lord Krishna will grant them moksha or freedom from the cycle of birth and rebirth. But nowadays, they hope material benefits of Vrindavan will help them survive one more day of this life.
Abandoned by their families and neglected by the authorities, the widows of Vrindavan, commonly known as Dasis, servants of God, have few support system other than each other. Manu Dasi has been living here in Pagal Baba Ashram since 30 years. She came to this place from the Indian state of West Bengal. She was widowed at the age of 45. Since then, she survives on one meal a day. She and all others like her have no means of income except 24 cents they get for singing hymns for 8 hours a day. The only alternative for these widows in Vrindavan is a life to be lived on the streets as a beggar in their own homeland and to face humility. Some of the ashrams today are also scattered with diseases like tuberculosis, dysentery and sexually transmitted diseases. Most often in the poorest ashrams, medical help is virtually non-existent.
Now on to Bahrain. It is very hard to point out all the different methods of brutality, including violations of human rights, which are deemed illegal under international law, of which Bahrain is actually a signatory to. So, we decided to just run some of the instances of this past week, which sheds light on these abuses backed by Saudi forces.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Minister, you're here to talk about the repressive regime of Libyan's Muammar Gaddafi, but you've also been charged at home with some human rights violations of your own. Do you feel that there's an inconsistency?
Well, no, there's no inconsistency. We are committed with our allies and brothers here to help the people of Libya. But the situation in Bahrain is very well known to the world, very well known to our allies, and we always discuss it. We always exchange views regarding it, and it's being dealt with and being investigated properly.
Hadi al-Khawaja was seen a few days ago admitted in a military hospital, and people who've seen him there, they could not recognize his face. Because of the torture mark in his face, he could not walk, he could not talk.
Let's talk about Bahrain. Our ally, Bahrain, is closing down the opposition newspaper, and the top editors are going on trial. Guess what else they're doing? They are prosecuting doctors. Prosecuting doctors in Bahrain for performing operations, life-saving operations on protesters. That is so shameful and disgusting that we, our country, could stand by with our Fifth Fleet, our Navy there, with our allies right there as we deny them freedom, as we shut down their newspapers and prosecute the editors, and then prosecute doctors for saving the lives of protesters who have been injured.
Very sad indeed. Well, let's get you out of this mood. Let's make a segue into something more soothing and relaxing. Well, a car show in the capital, Tehran, is where you're going to go to next.
They once roamed the streets and roads across Iran. Now they rest quietly, only to be admired by those who recall their sweet memories by gazing into their shiny metallic faces.
These sleeping beauties come from an age when quality was the first priority for the automobile industry. An age when cars were not just used to carry people around, but were also considered as companions for a lifetime.
The exhibition on old cars is held jointly by Iran's Cultural Heritage Organization and the Touring and Automobile Club of Iran. The dazzling collection consists of antique and classical cars owned by museums and private collectors in Iran.
A look now at the book, A User's Guide on the Crisis on Civilization and How to Save It by Dr. Nafeez Ahmad, which examines 6 different crises facing civilization, among them climate change.
Is global civilization threatened by a system of crisis? Is humankind facing a clash of civilizations, or is civilization itself in crisis? These are some of the questions Nafeez Ahmad raises in his new book. He does that by examining 6 separate crises confronting our civilization as trends and processes that belong to a single global system. The author takes the position that crises such as climate change cannot be resolved without considering peak oil and the resulting collapse of the nation state and global poverty, which requires us to examine our economic and financial structure. The author believes that we are dealing with a fundamental crisis of civilization itself, and he provides a stark warning of the consequences of failing to take a broad view of the problems facing the world. In today's epilogue, we will be reviewing A User's Guide to the Crisis of Civilization and How to Save It by Nafeez Ahmad.
Well, of the most read entries on PressTV.ir. Bin Laden was killed years ago. The 2007 Benazir Bhutto interview, in which she said the Al-Qaeda leader was murdered years ago, contributes to the uncertainty surrounding U.S. claims about Osama Bin Laden's death. In the interview, she identified the man who killed the notorious Al-Qaeda leader as one Omar Sheikh, excerpts of which was sent to Press TV's You Report. And that's all for this week's edition. Questions, comments, critiques, they're all welcome. Please send it to realitycheck@presstv.ir. But before I go, a question. Will the wave of awakenings, which is spread across the Middle East and North Africa, reach the heart of Europe?
فقط این نیست که در کشورهای شمال آفریقا و منطقه غرب آسیا که امروز ما در اونجا قرار داریم اینجاها یک حرکات بیداری به وجود آمده باشه. این حرکت بیداری تا قلب اروپا خواهد رفت. اون روزی پیش خواهد آمد که همین ملت‌های اروپایی علیه سیاستمداران و زمامداران و قدرتمندانی که اونها رو یکسره تسلیم سیاست‌های فرهنگی و اقتصادی آمریکا و صهیونیست کردن قیام خواهند کرد.